Okay, so it's Friday, and I'm working on hole number 2 here on the port side, and as you can see, we got a good start on it. One thing I noticed, and I made, this was a conscious decision, when I drilled the hole, or when I started the holes, you know, the guide holes here, I went in between the build stringers, and this is a build stringer here, and there's another one down here. I thought it was more important to have the hole on either side in the center of the build stringer, so I didn't cut through both of these or completely through either one of these build stringers. So I centered my drill bit between these build stringers. So this side is about an inch deeper than the starboard side, which I thought about that, and I can't see any reason why that would make a bit of difference. And yeah, so rather than, you know, putting them in exactly the same spot on each side of the hull, this hole on this side is about an inch deeper, or inch farther down, and that was just to keep it in between these build stringers. But you can see how much wood I've got, you know, to take out when you got the build stringers in there too. And of course, screws are always a problem. Here's one that got cut off by the hole saw, which is fine. The hole saw takes care of those all right. And here's one that I took out. I managed, well, I saw it after I hit it, I saw it, and I managed to take out. Here, I pulled one of these surface, the plywood screws out. I ground it down to the point where I could get to the head. I used a drill to drill out the epoxy from inside of the star head there, and then got it out. This one here will probably have to come out too, but I didn't want to go nuts here. Yeah, the blades don't do real well if you're using a wood blade on these multi-tools. They don't do very well when you hit screws. So yeah, that's a bit of a problem going through a few of those cutters. And yeah, those little things aren't cheap either. In fact, they're going to wind up costing me more than these oh, excuse me, more than these hole saws cost. But that's just the way it goes, I guess. But again, it's going all right. I had John stop out last night so he could get this thing lined up again. Because on the other side, I was thinking I could just put my 2x4 back in place in here that I had on the inside. But the 2x4, well, the build stringer down there was cut out. You know, the build stringer inside there where I had the 2x4 mounted was cut out, or drilled out where the screws went in. So I couldn't really get that 2x4 back in there on those build stringers. So I went this route, and I put some tape across here, just some painter's tape across there, and I measured as accurately as I could within probably a 32nd of an inch. And I got this hole centered. And then I put this piece of plywood on here. One screw was already here. I pulled one of these screws out, and I put a new one in here, new screw in here. And then I got some hot glue in there too to keep it stabilized a little bit. But anyway, so I had to have John come out to help me get this started again. And again, it was just a couple minutes to get that lined up. And I was inside holding the shaft of the drill bit, that big long drill bit, while he was on the other side pushing it through. So that's what we did here. Yeah, it's going all right again. It cuts quite rapidly. I'm spending the vast majority of my time with the multi-tool hacking out those pieces of wood and the screws. Yeah, so, alright, anyway, I just thought I'd give you a little update. Alright, so it's Friday night, and I finally managed to get my tube, at least, you know, through the boat. I had some little, and I kind of expected this. I'd have some issues with it being, you know, perfectly aligned, and you know that half-inch rod that I was using on the cutter, you know, was a little bit flexible, and so I knew there was. And then when I was doing the very bottoms part of these, I knew they were going to be probably not cut at perfect angle because I didn't have real good support on it. So I had a fair bit of sanding to do, and to get it in there. And I started out using a little drum sander, and I used like a finger sander, and I was spending hours at it. So I finally ended up just kind of saying heck with it. And I went with the flap disc on my grinder because I could actually get it in there, and just started grinding things down until I got the tube through here. So I don't know how many hours I spent sanding, but boy, I tell you what, had I just cut in there and not done an accurate job of cutting, I don't know how long it would have taken. I don't know what tool. Maybe you could have found yourself a rotary rasp or something that would have, done the job a little faster. But I'm glad I did it the way I did it, because I can't imagine how much sanding that would have been. Because not only was I going through 2 inches of boat, which when you're on an angle makes it 3.5, 4 inches, but then I've got a 2x4 up here and a 2x4 up here, build stringers that I had to go through. So you wound up having 6 or 7 inches of wood there to work on. And yeah, it's a lot of sanding, a lot of grinding. But anyway, we got it. And I think if I do one thing differently, I would order a cutter, just a little bit, a hole saw, just a little bit bigger. I went pretty much just exactly with the outside diameter, and you really don't need that kind of precision. You can see I got gaps in here now in some places, maybe a 1/4 inch or so, but that's absolutely fine because you're going to fill that with thickened epoxy. But yeah, I would order something maybe even a 1/4 inch bigger than what the tube is, at least 1/8 of an inch bigger, to make it a little easier to save yourself some hours of sanding to get that tube in there. But it's in there now, and what we'll do is we'll take a marker pen and we'll mark around the edge here, and we'll leave it just a little bit proud, and then when we go to glue it in, we'll epoxy it in. And same thing on this side, epoxy it in, and grind it down, sand it down flush with the side of the boat once it's epoxied in there. So yeah, anyway, I just thought I'd do a little update on that. And I kind of have a saying that if I don't draw blood at least once a day, I'm not working hard enough. Well, I drew blood 3 times today, so so yeah, I got a little bit in the bank. My hand here, you can see that. And that is not actually a scratch or anything. That was just from the drill slamming my hand up against the side of the hull. And then I had this thing pop up one time and catch me in the chin, and this is very sharp. And I put a nice deep gouge in my chin. Now fortunately, this was one of those cuts that was so clean and so sharp that it kind of, I taped it together for half an hour or so, and then it was pretty much stuck back together again. So let a little blood, but we'll be all right. And then I don't know, I cut my arm here somewhere else too. But anyway, so yeah, I got some cuts in the bank for tomorrow and the day after. Yeah, we'll see about that, but I'll probably draw more blood tomorrow. And the thing was, with my hand here, I was wearing these things, which actually have these gloves, which actually have this cushioned protective layer on them, and it still smucked my hand up pretty good. Yeah, well, and that's what you get when you got a high torque, relatively low RPM, high torque drill. It's got a lot of force behind it. But okay, that's just a little update after we got the tube through there. Alright, so it's Sunday, and just a real quick little update on the progress of the thruster tube. And as you can see here, the holes are cut out, and I got this end cut off. I marked it, labeled these port and starboard, marked them for alignment, and then I just marked them a little bit proud, so I can use a grinder or whatever and grind that down. So that side's almost ready, and this side needs to be cut yet, but unfortunately this stuff is really hard to cut. So I went through 2 metal cutting saw blades just doing the one side, the starboard side over there. So I'll need to pick up some more blades, and tomorrow I'm going on a little shopping run, so to the home improvement store. So I'll get more blades tomorrow, and we'll get this going. Haven't been working on anything else. I've been feeling a little crappy the last couple days, so I haven't gotten a whole lot done else. But we did get these holes finished in the boat, so that's good. But yeah, that's kind of sort of what it's going to look like. Big old hole through the boat. Yeah. I think this afternoon I'm going to do a little more sanding here, and maybe tonight put a piece of glass cloth on there, and then maybe get a little bit more sanding done here, down here. Yeah, we'll see how I feel, but yeah, that's the plan anyway. Alright, so today is Tuesday, a late week update, and I got my tube cut, stuck it in there, used a Sharpie to mark it, leaving myself about a 1/4 inch on either side, and I used jigsaw to cut it out. And I went through 4 jigsaw blades just cutting these two ends off there. I used metal cutting blades, and even at that stuff's really hard. It ripped those blades up pretty quickly. So today now, did that yesterday. Now today, I put the tube in, and there you can see it. I got a nice big hole through the boat. I put an initial coat of epoxy in there the other day to seal it, let it cure. I sanded it, I cleaned it, scrubbed it with a Scotch-Brite pad and water. So I cleaned it, then I dried it, sanded it, put another coat of epoxy on it, then I put some thickened epoxy, kind of all the way around in there, and both sides. And then I slid the tube in. And then I came around from the outside and used a putty knife to fill in and to force the thickened epoxy in there as best I could. I would have liked to have gotten the epoxy in there a little bit deeper. I'm sure it's in a 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, whatever it got forced in there. Actually, what I was finding was the places where I had a wider gap, it was easier to fill. So yeah, again, if I was going to do this again, I would have gotten a hole saw just a little bit bigger. It really doesn't matter because you're going to fill it in anyway, and the filling is actually easier with a bit more of a gap there. But it went all right. I think it'll be fine. Of course, you can always seal it from the outside. And I used a bigger syringe. I think it's a 60 milliliter syringe to inject the thickened epoxy in some areas on the inside here to get it in there deeper. And I was thinking about doing that on the outside too, but the angles just weren't very good for that. So I ended up doing that inside here, particularly in the corners where they met these build stringers up here. Up in these corners, like up here, here, and there. Well, all 4 corners, actually. So I injected some epoxy in there, and then of course everywhere else I filled as best I could again with a putty knife. But there you can see the tube, and I actually think I'm going to have enough room to set the thruster motor. I got about a foot there, maybe not quite, 11.5 inches, something like that. But I can put the thruster motor in here just vertically. It can go at any angle. I could angle it back slightly, or even at a 90-degree angle. But I think it's going to be easier to work on if it's vertical. It doesn't need any extra supports if it's vertical, where they say if it's over 30 degrees you need to put a support bracket in there. Yeah, so, and then of course being vertical too, it still leaves us a little more room down here for storage, to put things. But yeah, this went okay. I think it'll be fine. We'll have to let the epoxy cure, then we'll grind it down from the outside, flush with the hull, and then we'll put some glass cloth over the end there. And just as a note here, you can kind of see these, here's these 4x10 floors that I've been talking about that, you know, we had water get between the keel and that floor. And then here's another one here. And there's the nuts on top that, you know, maybe these shrunk a little bit and caused that one back there to pull away a little bit. I don't know, but yeah, if we could get at these, we could tighten these, which of course a lot of these we can get at, but there's some that we can't get at either. And I'm not sure what I'll do in here, if I'll put epoxy in here or just put some more of that copper naphthenate in areas that don't have it. We shall see. But anyway, so the thruster tube is in. That means work on the rest of the hull can continue. So today is September 25th, and welcome to the boat shop. And you've seen pretty much what's been going on the past week from the clips that I've shot earlier. But here on the keel, I'm making progress here. The only thing is, I'm finding now with these nights getting cooler that my epoxy isn't curing quite as quickly as what it had been. So I started sanding here yesterday, and you can see I stopped, and I did put some more fairing compound another 4 feet back, and I'm trying to do 4 feet a day, or more or less 4 feet a day. But I'm going to have to get a little ahead with the fairing compound because this epoxy isn't curing enough to make it sand real well after just 24 hours. Now this week might be the exception. It's supposed to be fairly warm this week. They're talking, you know, 80 degrees or thereabouts for the highs anyway, and I think lower 50s for the lows. So we may get some decent curing going on this week. But like now, I'm going to have to wait with doing anything here until it cures a little bit better. And the epoxy that I set in the tube there, in that thruster tube, it also needs to cure just a little bit more before I can do anything with it. It's mostly set up, but it's still just a little bit plastic. So we'll give that probably until tomorrow, and then maybe we'll try, I suppose, the angle grinder with the flap disc on that to bring that down. We'll see what works the best, but it doesn't really matter whatever will do the trick. And in here, I do need to put that piece of fiberglass on here, so that's something maybe I could do this afternoon, is sand this down and get that fiberglass on there. Otherwise, it's going all right. I need to glass the inside of this tube to the inside of the boat, but I think I'm going to wait with that until after I get at least the motor install started. That way I know exactly where I want to put the glass and where I don't want it, and so forth. But I don't need to get the motor installed. It'd be easier to do before the motor is installed, but at least get the motor and that adapter plate that drops onto the tube, and so I can get that all figured out where it's going to go and where I can and can't put fiberglass then. So yeah, I don't really have anything else to report. Like I said, we're just kind of carrying on with what we've been doing here. But now with the weather cooling down a little bit, yeah, that part's going to slow me down. I'll be able to get more done in a day because it's not so terrible hot, but then again, it's not curing as fast. So yeah, 6 of one and a half does the other. But yeah, so that'll be it for today. I don't really have anything else I can think of that I need to mention. So I will talk to you again next week.